Hi, my name's Clayton Smith and I am a Deputy Director in the Cabinet Office for Digital Change and Delivery. I've been in the civil service now for 16 years.
Hi, I'm Kabir Ahmed. I've been a civil servant for coming up to 20 years. I'm a grade 7 at the Department for Education.
Hi, so my name's Godfrey Atwani Jr. and I currently work at the at HMRC, and I'm currently grade 7 and my directorate is the HMRC Strategies Directorate.
Hi everyone, I'm Kabir Ahmed. I work in the Cabinet Office as a grade 6 on EU exit work. I've worked in the civil service now for 12 years, so it's been quite a while.
Hello, my name is Nicholas Daniel. I'm an economic advisor at the Food Standards Agency, grade 7. I've been with the civil service for over 15 years.
Hi, my name is Kabir Ahmed. I am a grade 6 team leader in the Home Office. I'm currently on loan to the Foreign Office, Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office. Been a civil servant for about 20 years now.
Hi, my name is Justin Placide. I am a grade 6 based in the Department for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy. I'm also as well a co-chair of the Faith and Minority Ethnic Network and also as well co-chair of the Civil Service Race Forum.
Hi, I'm Chandra Disanaika and I've been in the civil service now for just under 20 years and I'm currently a director in the Ministry for Housing, Communities and Local Government.
My name is Junior Johnson. I work at the Ministry of Justice. I'm a senior civil servant and I've been in the civil service for over 30 years.
I've been in the civil service now for 16 years. I joined as an executive officer and I've currently been a pay band 1 now for 3 years.
I started in the department in 2002 as an AO, 18-year-old, fresh-faced, and ended up a grade 7 in 2017, so roughly took about 15 years to get there. The journey was quite long and quite difficult, so it started off doing loads of admin roles before moving on to private office, which was quite a sort of significant milestone. So I think I took the leap then where I didn't have any sort of existing colleagues or friends that had done private office. I was so glad I did it because within that environment I was surrounded by a totally different cohort of individuals. I had a team leader who was so super motivated. I was working to a minister who was incredibly articulate, knew the business inside out, so you had to be on top of your game. And then within that small sub-team, within that private office team, you had a group of EOs and HEOs who were super motivated, so super driven and super sort of keen to sort of progress. And a lot of that ends up sort of rubbing off on you. I did it for sort of 18 months and by the end of that 18 months I felt like a completely different person.
Started as a SEO within BEIS, the Business, Energy, Industrial Strategy Department. Then most recently I've managed to get my permanent grade 7 in HMRC as a Senior Strategy Advisor.
Hi, so I started in the civil service in 2009, so quite a few years, just over a decade. I started off as an admin officer. I worked my way up a few levels to HO/SEO level, I'd say. It was then quite a challenge to get to grade 7 level, and there are a number of techniques and things that I did in order to sort of reach the higher grades, if you like. But yes, it was certainly sort of an experience of sort of growing my skill set first.
When I joined the civil service, which was around possibly late of 2003, I joined as the Home Office as a research officer, which is equivalent to an EO grade. And through that journey, it probably took me around 6-7 years to reach the grade 7 level, which I currently am at.
I've been in the civil service now for over 20 years. I did a law degree at university, went to law school, and that provided me with an opening to, in my first job really as a civil servant, which was in the Immigration and Tribunal Advocacy Unit. So I was a presenting officer. I used to work in immigration. Worked on counter-terrorism for most of my career in the Home Office, and really from there I went on to my current role as a grade 6 in a policy environment, and I've just tried to do as many different jobs as possible, jobs that interested me, keeping an eye on trying to get career progression as well.
I've been in a department for BEIS, so that's Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy, for just over 5 years. But my civil service career has been roughly about 13 years. As mentioned, I'm currently a grade 6. It's probably taken me around 12 years to get to my current position. Started off as a temp, and as they say, well, as Drake says, I started from the bottom and now I'm here, and I've just tried to really continue to work my way up, whether from EO to HEO, SEO to grade 7, and then grade 7 to grade 6. And I've done that by always trying to do roles that are going to challenge me, and also as well doing roles that I think is going to help expand my experience in the civil service. So whether it's policy, communications, operational delivery, these are the kind of things that I think have just really helped round me out as a civil servant.
So I actually started in the public sector as an AA many years ago, and then I rejoined the civil service as an EO and potted around as an EO and an HEO for about 10 years. And then about 10 years ago, I decided to really focus on my career and build a career in the civil service moving forward. And it took me 10 years to slowly progress to where I am currently, having been an HEO.
I joined the civil service as an admin assistant. I joined the Office of Population Censuses and Surveys around 1991, so quite a while ago. I've had a varied journey to the senior civil service. I've done a number of roles ranging from benefits processor to managing teams and overpayments, for example, through to managing large operational teams, which have involved managing teams in the region of 1,000 to 8,000 people. I've managed large projects and programs during my journey. My first senior civil service role was managing the contracted out employment work programs in DWP, Department for Work and Pensions that is, where I was responsible for a program of £1 billion expenditure per annum and turning that contract around to make it work as it was failing. I've also spent some time at number 10 Downing Street in the policy unit there, working on the social mobility white paper, where over a period of about 9 to 12 months, I worked developing policy areas for how we might get more disadvantaged people from disadvantaged backgrounds into employment. So I've had quite a long and varied career.
Throughout my journey, I've come through significant challenges, actually. I think challenges that are not dissimilar to what I hear consistently throughout the years I've been in the civil service, whether that's applying for roles and being unsuccessful, whether that's a feeling of a tone or an environment where I've been made to feel uncomfortable. Some of you may know me or may not, but for those who not, I've got long dreadlocks. When I started the civil service, these were very short, and I've had comments where I need to cut my dreadlocks in order to progress. I need to speak or act in a certain way. And these are just a few of the challenges that I've not only had to address and face, but overcome throughout this journey so far.
One of the key barriers for me as I sort of progressed to grade 7 was probably sort of personal development and growth, and that was driven primarily by my own sort of limited beliefs, but also by poor line management. So I had loads of poor line managers as a grade HEO, but then I had a run of really good grade 7 line managers, which were brilliant. And one of the things that they put me in touch with was the positive action pathway. So it was a development program for in civil servants with protective characteristics. Now, it was like a 6-month program, and again, it was something that I wasn't very keen on doing, just purely because it involved two sorts of. It was almost like doing action learning sets and then like a seminar day as well, where you sort of reflected on what you've learned. And again, it wasn't something that I was very keen on doing, but as soon as I did it, it was brilliant because you were doing things that were completely unrelated to work. They were around what drivers you to sort of develop as an individual, but it also opened you up to sort of other colleagues across the civil service. So like you had colleagues in the room that were from the Foreign Office, you had colleagues that were Home Office, and within that group, you certainly saw similar patterns in terms of concerns, about progression, and we were able to support each other through those groups, and they were brilliant. That was a really key driver to overcome that development barrier that I certainly had, and not wanting to develop myself further.
Hey, so the obstacles I faced from being a civil servant, I would say, is the first one is understanding the culture. I came from an operations background at Transport for London, and it wasn't in policy. And so I struggled understanding how to write correctly in policy terms. Also, I struggled the obstacle I also came across was understanding the culture as well. Being a civil servant is different. It's a different way of life. You work for the Queen, you work for ministers. So this was all new to me. So understanding that way of working. I think finally was also just understanding where I kind of fit into the organisation. That was a struggle for me because being a black man, proud from London with my London accent, this was all new to me. And the people who I was working with weren't from London, were not black. So I really struggled to gain my kind of place within the organisation as well. So to overcome my struggles and obstacles, I also, I went out and actually got a mentor, someone who I looked up to, someone who could inspire me to keep me on a straight and narrow, to give me those tips and advice for me to progress. I also got heavily involved with the FAME network, which is the race network at Bays. And from that gave me confidence to progress and to actually say, no, I'm not standing for this. And yes, this is a change I'm going to make. And finally, I actually done some training as well to make sure I could build my confidence up, understand the skills that were required for me to progress and do a good job.
So during my career in the civil service, I received a few promotions at the sort of lower grades. Eventually I got up to SO level, Senior Executive Officer level, and I found it was a fair challenge to get to the grade 7 level from SO. There were very specific skills and experiences and training and qualifications that were needed in the department I was working at the time, at SO level. In order to get to grade 7, I was feeling a little bit like I perhaps wasn't being given enough opportunity, and there wasn't enough of a focus on me as an individual. I therefore took it upon myself to look at sort of mentoring opportunities, shadowing, networking, etc. And I think that paid dividends. I was able to work with a Director General, shadow colleagues, get to know individuals at all levels, senior levels in particular, across other departments as part of networking programs that I joined. That then gave me the confidence and the skills to develop myself as an individual. And so I was able to eventually apply for a grade 7 job, which I then successfully managed to go into.
When I just joined the civil service, I did have some issues where I felt that I wasn't really given an opportunity to grow and really tap into the skill set that I thought that I had. The obstacle being that I felt I wasn't able to progress was actually a catalyst for me to really go out there, try to build my own networks, engage with people. And that really sort of helped to open up opportunities and doors for me. And I would say a good example I've had most recently is my previous manager, who was incredibly supportive. And at times you felt you were put in the deep end, but really that helped to build confidence, grow. And even before their departure, encouraged me to start thinking about the next level, broadening my horizons, which was incredibly supportive.
Some of the kind of obstacles and barriers that I've come across in my civil service career are, some of them are really from me needing to widen my experience, needing to grow, both professionally and personally. And some of the obstacles I face are really kind of, I guess, imposed by others around me or the work environment. So if I start off with the first one about me, first of all, because I think it's always important to take responsibility for one's own career, progression and learning and growth. I really needed to take into account the strengths that I brought into the role. So I've got a legal background, I love debating, I love arguing, I love persuading and influencing. So these are things that really that I have been the bedrock of what I've brought into lots of different roles. But I also understood that I needed to think more harder about how I communicate and diversify my style of communication. That I needed to think about how I can improve my drafting. Drafting a submission is very different from drafting a legal paper, for example. So I had to do that. And I also had to think about how to operate in the civil service, how to engage with ministers, with special advisors, with others, and also how to engage with other government departments. But there are also challenges from outside. So I've had, one or two occasions, very difficult, challenging line managers, and it's about how do I try and work with them? When do I know that actually it's best for me to move on? And when is it actually important for me to see how I can, again, be flexible and adaptable, work with the people around me and get the recognition for what I do? Other barriers that might affect me and have affected me over the years have been around trying to get those opportunities that I think are going to improve my own work and my own career progression, and trying to see how I can influence others to provide those with me. And there are softer skills that I've needed to deploy in networking with people, taking up opportunities to be mentored or to be sponsored to try and get that breakthrough, recognizing, of course, that sometimes there's a game that has to be played for us to be able to succeed in our careers.
I have also as well, like a number of colleagues within the civil service, faced obstacles. And that could come down to something as simple as sometimes just not really getting on well with my line manager, or maybe perception. So maybe certain people thinking that I may not have the skills and qualities to lead on a certain project. But I think also as well some obstacles that maybe I've put in my own path. So in my early stage of my career, I felt that I didn't really have a career in the civil service. So I focused most on trying to ensure that my outside commitments were the things that were going to keep me motivated. So sometimes I think with regards to obstacles, it can either be internal or external. And I think there's a bit of opportunity to do some self-reflections, some discussions with your coaching to help you try to find out ways that you can actually overcome those obstacles, especially if they're ones that you've already implied on yourself.
So over my career, there's clearly been loads of obstacles at different grades and as me as a person. And with all of them, I've had to think really carefully about what it is that's preventing me from moving forward. Is it something external or is it something internal? And how can I either overcome it or change or go around it to move forward? The best lesson I learnt was to get feedback, and then to really think about that feedback, whether it's fair or unfair, and consider how I can change perceptions of people in terms of what they think I can do, knowing full well that I am capable.
So the challenges and obstacles that come with being a senior civil servant or working in senior roles are many and varied. And what I would say is most of the jobs, if not all of the jobs at this level, are challenging. So there's just something about your ability to be able to relate to people, relate to circumstances, and relate to ministers that's always going to make it challenging. But the one thing I would say that I found probably most challenging, especially during my middle to earlier career, was self-belief and the importance of not putting self-imposed barriers in the way of the things and the areas and the jobs that you might want to go for.
In terms of words of advice, as I said, the challenges that we all face individually and collectively are not dissimilar. I would say challenge the status quo in a respectful, professional and concise way. Use data to form your arguments and any narratives. And also, I would say, persevere. So don't stop. And the famous quote of what the mind can conceive, it can achieve, is what I'd also throw in.
Advice that I would give Black and Asian colleagues or men within the civil service who want to progress are, there's 3 or 4 things that you can do. The first thing is to build a really strong support structure, and that starts with strong line management. Now, if you don't have a strong line manager, I think it is a case of sort of finding a role that probably does have a good line manager in place, or a role that you don't necessarily have to do that same role continuously. You can move on. Nothing's stopping you from moving on and trying something different apart from your own sort of beliefs that you might not be able to do it, which you might surprise yourself in that you can do it. The second aspect that you might want to look at is those key sort of development programs. So I've mentioned I've done Positive Action Pathway, but I think there's new programs like Catapult out there, which I think certainly you should look into. And the other alternative is joining a mentor scheme. So I think most civil service departments have an internal mentor scheme that you can join, or external. I went through that process. I had 2 sets of mentors. One was dreadful because it was just a tick box for them. But then the second mentor I had was outside of the department, and it was brilliant. It worked really, really well in parallel with the development program I was doing at the time. And the third thing is, I suppose, not being scared. Like, I think beating your fears of feeling like you're an imposter or having those self-limiting beliefs and moving forward from that. Those would probably be the main takeaways for me.
So the advice I want to give to my fellow brothers, my Black, Asian and minority ethnic brothers are, firstly, get a mentor, a sponsor, a coach, someone to provide you advice and tips. That person could be a white woman, an Asian man, a black woman, anyone else who's out there who can support you, because that person can give you the advice and tips you need. You know, make sure they're a few grades above you so they can give you the blueprint that they follow to get to where they are. And that really supported me. Secondly, join the network, join the race network, join the BAME network as well, because those people in that group, in that network, are your allies. They are there to help and support you. And finally, pick jobs that make you stretch. Pick jobs that make you grow. Pick jobs that make you learn. Because the jobs I've done, like being a private secretary to government ministers, really helps me to think like a minister and to make me think next steps, and made me took strategic views in all the work I did. So that's my tips I would give to my Black and Asian minority ethnic brothers.
So one of the things that strikes me about the civil service is there's such a wide range of opportunities and such a wide range of sort of policy areas and subject areas which you can work on. So you might be one of those individuals that's quite happy sort of working on one specific policy for a long amount of time. That's all well and good, and I'd say, you know, it's good to sort of build your knowledge and expertise in one particular area. However, you might want to sort of look further afield at other opportunities once in a while. It's always good to network. It's always good to build those relationships, both with not only people within your organisation, but across other departments as well. Nowadays, there's a whole range of sort of opportunities to network and get to know people from across multiple departments. So I'd encourage everyone to sort of go out there and see what your department and the wider civil service is doing. So as I say, absolutely, you know, if you're working in one department and you're happy there, there's no reason perhaps to change. But at the same time, it's always good to know what's out there, to build your relationships, get to know people who are working on other policy areas, and, you know, building those relationships will then help you in the future. If you are looking to move elsewhere and sort of challenge yourself to do something else, you'll have those contacts from across departments who might sort of be able to sort of direct you towards what's coming up on the horizon.
So advice I will give to Black and Asian men is, first of all, it's really invaluable to be able to have a mentor, a good mentor, somebody who is able to hear your concerns, and at the same time encourage you to step back and think about the strengths that you have, because too often I think we tend to focus too much on our weaknesses, and that can be a hindrance. But at the same time as well, if you are recognizing those weaknesses, a good mentor would encourage you in terms of how to make those weaknesses strengths. By having opportunities to probably shadowing, I find is an incredibly valuable opportunity as well. And trying to identify networks that work for you. Not all networks are going to work for individuals. It very much depends on more or less what you're looking for in terms of your career progression. But what I found that was most valuable was speaking to individuals that had reached a pinnacle of their career or reached a particular point in their career and you wanted to sort of follow a similar path. And sharing their experience, how they got there, I found was the most beneficial. And also, this is very important, recognizing the kind of manager you have. Are they the kind of manager that is just content for you to stay where you are and not progress? Or are they the ones that are encouraging you to grow? And that's very important to recognize as early as possible.
I would always encourage my colleagues and friends out there to try and be proactive, because there comes a point where, and I faced this in my own career, where I've gone for interviews and the kind of experiences that I'm putting down in terms of application forms and interviews doesn't appear to be getting me the kind of recognition that gets me that next rung up on that career ladder. And so talking to my line manager, talking to others as well, friends and colleagues, about how I can diversify my experiences has, I think, paid off a little bit. And sometimes that is through temporary promotion, but sometimes that's just me thinking about how I can make room in my own diary to do something different and to give me an edge in that next interview and that next application for another opportunity.
The advice I'd give to black and Asian men who want to succeed in the civil service, or just generally, I suppose the first thing would be to make sure you've got a really clear purpose. So an understanding of what it is that you want to do and what you think your unique strengths or unique selling points are. So that's the first thing, have a really clear and strong purpose. Second thing is believe in yourself and be good at what you do. So whatever you do, whatever your chosen field is, make sure that you are good and stand out for delivery. I suppose another thing to think about is make sure you get yourself a career plan or a personal development plan. I think that is really important. And then I think that enables you to legitimise the conversations you can then have with line managers, get yourself a mentor, a coach, or even a sponsor actually. So I think they're really important that you have people that believe in you and champion your cause and what it is you're doing. So I also think it's important to test yourself and actually put yourself into situations where you're probably going to be outside of your comfort zone. So that alongside lifelong learning and actually trying to get new skills and acquire new opportunities, I think is really important. I think it's really important that you take those risks when those opportunities present themselves. That way you will grow exponentially. And again, it will show that you can deliver things in different environments.
So looking back on my career, if I could give some advice to the younger me when I was at some of the more junior grades, it will be to not just be brilliant at what you do, but also raise your profile in the organisation. And you can do that through various ways, through sponsorship, through mentoring, but more importantly, just putting your hand up and taking on the role that no one else wants to do, quite frankly, and being good at it and putting your whole heart into it and being excellent. And combining that with a really good attitude and confidence, I think takes you a long way.
So some advice and of course some encouragement that I'd like to offer out to my ethnic minority brothers and sisters who are watching this in the civil service, who may at some point in their job, in their career or in their journey, they may feel that they're not really getting to where they want to be. I think it's definitely about self-reflection. Understand actually, where do you really want to go in the civil service? Also as well, a bit of honesty. If you feel that maybe, for example, you're not really getting the support from your line manager, or you may not have a mentoring program in your department or arm's length body or partner organisation, start thinking about outside of those areas. So definitely within the Civil Service Race Forum, we've got a mentoring program. I would also as well say is definitely when you're attending these events that are being run by your race network or attending another race network's event, if you hear a speaker that you're quite impressed with, don't be afraid to just send them an email just to say, it'd be really good maybe if I could have a coffee or a tea or a hot chocolate, whatever the beverage of your choice is. And get to understand that actually sometimes having a conversation with someone can help just open up your mind. I think the other kind of thing with regards to the encouragement is definitely don't give up. And if that's okay for those who are watching, don't compare yourself to other people. Your journey is your journey. Don't worry about some people who might have the cheat code and while we're waiting for a bus, they're in an Uber. You take your time, you make the decisions that are right for you, and you listen to the people who really put you at the start of that conversation. They're the kind of things that you need to surround yourself by. Now, I also as well want to be able to say for those people who are probably going through situations, so maybe they've not got that relationship with their line manager, or whether they're not comfortable with the work that they're doing, this is where you need to put yourself first. And what I mean by that is that your personal well-being. And once again, I know it's easy to say because I'm in front of the camera, but if a job or if a team or if a line manager is not right for you, you should be thinking about finding a place that is. If people can't appreciate you and the talents and skills that you bring to a role, then don't stay in that role just for the sake of staying there, because it truly will affect you, and also as well, it will stop you on your journey or your path to success.
Additional advice is to use your networks, internal and external. There are many who want to challenge the status quo and make a difference, scattered across government. Use your networks and connect. And also, believe in yourself, because if you don't, nobody else will.